Hey, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Kev, obviously your host of Speechless, and right now I am not live on the radio. As many of you know, I do my live streams on Sundays from 3 to 5 for my local radio show in Central Illinois, but a lot of times in that 2 hours, I don't necessarily get to everything I want to cover, and so there's a lot more to talk about in the news. And so I want to start making videos called Speechless Cut for Time. You guys might have seen my announcement video of that. Speechless Cut for Time is just going to be videos and short clips of things that I wanted to get to but couldn't necessarily fit in the show. So everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is Speechless Cut for Time. While these videos might be pre-recorded, I'm still going to treat it very much like as if it's a live video just because that's the kind of person I am. So let's get right on into it. This first video that I'm doing here today, that I wanted to get to yesterday but didn't really have a chance to, was about Senator Tim Scott's exploratory committee announcement. If you do want to check out the live stream from yesterday, I'm going to put the link right up there right about now, and you can check that out. I did talk about 2024 a little bit, but I want to talk more about Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina announcing that he was going to be running, he's forming an exploratory committee to possibly run for president in 2024. And while I have my feelings about potential candidates and candidates and everything, I want to go through his announcement ad that he made, which was kind of interesting because while a lot of people make exploratory committee announcements, his was very professionally done and different from almost anyone that I had ever really seen before. So we're going to go through this ad a little bit, and I'm going to take it piece by piece. And we're going to just kind of figure out exactly what we want to get out of this. So let me share my screen here. So Tim Scott, there we go. All right, you guys should be able to see it. Let's hope you can hear it.
On this day, April 12th, 1861, in this harbor, the first shots of the Civil War were fired, and our country faced the defining moment. Would we truly be one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all? America's soul was put to the test, and we prevailed. Today, our country is once again being tested. Once again, our divisions run deep, and the threat to our future is real. Joe Biden and the radical left have chosen a culture of grievance over greatness. They're promoting victimhood instead of personal responsibility, and they're indoctrinating our children to believe we live in an evil country. And all too often, when they get called out for their failures, they weaponize race to divide us, to hold on to their power. When I fought back against their liberal agenda, they called me a prop, a token, because I disrupt their narrative. I threaten their control. They know the truth of my life disproves their lies.
So he starts off here. I'm going to pause it there. So he starts off here, Tim Scott, talking, obviously, very much evoking the Civil War. And a lot of people right now feel that the division in our country, obviously, if you're watching this, you probably know, a lot of people feel that our country is very much in a time of possible, not necessarily civil war per se. Some do believe that, but at least very high tension politically, as the two parties seem to be so far off from one another. He claims that America's soul is being put to the test. We're a tested nation, and there's large divisions. And then he starts very much evoking race being a central theme of what he's talking about in this, that he's a black guy. He doesn't explicitly say that, but he basically does. And he says that he says that they call him a token because he decides to go against the woke narrative. That all Republicans are racist, and all that kind of crap. So he's trying to go against that narrative, evoke race and the fact that he's a minority, to try to push that idea that because of that identity, he will push back against the woke narrative while also standing up for conservative beliefs. And there he gets into that a little bit more. But this sounded very, very similar to Nikki Haley. You guys might know Nikki Haley, former United Nations ambassador under President Trump. Kind of got a lot of backlash when she kind of went against President Trump in the past, soon after January 6th and such. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to watch just a little bit of Nikki Haley's video, and we're going to compare, because so another thing in Tim Scott's video is he also shows the lefties that everybody recognizes and always sees as the enemy. So like your Bernie Sanders, your AOCs, Joe Biden, and Rashida Tlaib, all people like that. And so he also tries to evoke an emotion through that. Let's watch Nikki Haley's and just kind of make some similarity, some compare and contrast of Nikki Haley's video. Here is hers.
The railroad tracks divided the town by...
Okay, so first off, from the very beginning, you can see right there she has, I can point it out, a location, just like Tim Scott did. But keep going.
Race. I was the proud daughter of Indian immigrants.
Proud daughter of Indian immigrants. Already, first 9-10 seconds has evoked race. 10 seconds has evoked race. Okay, so I pointed that stuff out. We're going to watch about 45 seconds of this, but let's restart it here so you can get the full effect. But I just wanted to point those things out from the beginning.
The railroad tracks divided the town by race. I was the proud daughter of Indian immigrants. Not black, not white. I was different. But my mom would always say your job is not to focus on the differences, but the similarities. And my parents reminded me and my siblings every day how blessed we were to live in America. Some look at our past as evidence that America's founding principles are bad. They say the promise of freedom is just made up. Some think our ideas are not just wrong,
AOC,
but racist and evil.
That's a 1619
Nothing
Project
could
lady.
be further from the truth. I have seen evil.
Then she goes further into her experience as a UN ambassador and such. Main purpose of this video isn't Nikki Haley, but I really wanted to point out the similarities because if you noticed, again, it was about how they fall into a different identity category than what is traditionally viewed as Republican, and that's supposed to earn social capital. It might actually. But what this is telling me right now is that a focus of the 2024 presidential race when it comes to the Republican side is identity politics. Identity politics is going to be at the forefront. And it's going to be kind of a fight and a struggle because for so long, Republicans have said we don't want identity politics. But now they're also kind of saying we don't want identity politics, but we're going to have to play the games that we can appeal to certain people and such. And that sits differently with people because it's identity politics. I mean, it's not necessarily voting for somebody based off their platform or anything like that. They're starting off these videos. The most watch time, I can tell you as a more recent YouTube creator, the majority of your watch time is at the beginning of your video. Everybody starts watching your video at the beginning. By the end of it, they're not necessarily there, but the beginning they are. And so for literally the first 10 seconds to a minute, depending on if you're watching Nikki Haley or Tim Scott's, it is about their personal identity and not about anything else. It starts getting into more about it being fighting against anti-freedom and such. But I mean, again, that's so basic. The thing that they are pointing out that's different about them isn't necessarily that they have as much of a record to go off of. They do have a record to go off of, but that's not what they're stressing. They're stressing the thing that makes me different is the color of my skin. That's what makes them different. Nothing else. And so I don't think it's necessarily a great sell. I'm curious what you guys have to say. Post in the comments. What do you think? Do you think that identity politics is going to be what wins this election? Because that's the thing is I think it's a point to make, but should it be your primary point? I don't think so. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Tim Scott's video because he does get into a little bit more about himself and who he is. And I think it's worth watching. So let's take a look more at Tim Scott's ad here.
I was raised by a single mother in poverty. The spoons in our apartment were plastic, not silver. But we had faith, we put in the work, and we had an unwavering belief that we too could live the American dream. I know America is a land of opportunity, not a land of oppression. I know it because I've lived it. That's why it pains my soul to see the Biden liberals attacking every rung of the ladder that helped me climb. If the radical left gets their way, millions more families will be trapped in failing schools, crime-ridden neighborhoods, and crushing inflation. Not on my watch. This is personal to me. I will never back down in defense of the conservative values that make America exceptional. And that's why I'm announcing my exploratory committee for President of the United States.
So He gets a lot more into in that video right there about his personal life and where he came from. And I think, honestly, that's a better sell. Personally, here's how I see it, is that I think the thing that really has people captivated right now is the state of our economy. I'll get into Tim Scott, but the state of our economy, everybody is focused on. Our inflation is at its highest rates, like almost ever. I mean, maybe since like the Great Depression. I don't know the exact stat off the top of my head, but everybody knows inflation is a big problem. Everybody's suffering from the plague that is higher costs. And that's not a discrimination thing. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, Indian, whatever. People are struggling financially. And he talks about the fact that his spoons weren't silver, they were plastic or whatever. And so I think that's honestly a better sell, is to say, hey, I know you're struggling. I know what it's like to struggle. And my side has the solutions. Not only my side, but I have the solutions to help and to make things better. That's the sell I think he should be having, really. But again, he hits on a lot of the just traditional conservative talking points. He obviously tells the story. He's a man of faith. He talks about American exceptionalism, which a lot of people feel like is lost. A land of opportunity, not oppression, is a direct quote from him in that. And again, that hits back at the race. He's trying to hammer in on his race very, very much in this. Let's end this out, his video, and just analyze. He goes into his priority points that he puts for president. And so let's take a look at these.
I will defend the Judeo-Christian foundation our nation is built on and protect our religious liberty. I will stand up to communist China and restore opportunities for hard-working Americans to thrive and prosper. I will fight to give every parent a choice in education so their children have a better chance in life. I will defend our borders and our neighborhood streets, and I will protect our most fundamental right, the right to life itself. I bear witness that America can do for anyone what she's done for me, but we must rise up to the challenges of our time. This is a fight we must win, and that will take faith. Faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in America. God bless our United States of America, and God bless you.
Tim Scott, Faith in America. And again, it's paid for by the Tim Scott Presidential Exploratory Committee. He is not necessarily announcing his candidacy for president directly, but technically he almost kind of is, based on all the everything that we know about how these things usually work. You don't usually spend that much money on an exploratory committee to just say, well, I learned that I'm not good enough. Even Kamala Harris entered the race in 2020, and now she's the vice president. So you never know what can happen. And that's, I think, the biggest point of this is you never know what can happen when it comes to these races. Right now, everybody seems to be focusing a lot on Trump and DeSantis. The race to a lot of people is Trump versus DeSantis. But that could change. And so we got to keep an eye on it. And so the plan that he lays out is focusing and defending the Judeo-Christian foundation, standing up to China, which is very important, especially with this current administration, restoring opportunities to people, especially after COVID and this awful inflation. School choice was a big one. That's one that I've heard from the Republican Party, but never has been a forefront necessarily issue. I think after COVID, that's become a bigger issue, and a lot of people are talking about it. Defending our borders. Obviously, the southern border was such a big topic in 2016 and a little bit in 2020. It's going to continue to be something on the conservative docket, is to talk about is defending our borders. Focusing on crime was his sixth point. Everybody cares about that one. And honestly, that's one that he should probably hit on more, because if he wants to lean into, and this is just like blanket strategy belief, is that if he wants to lean into race as being such a big issue for this, and saying that, not necessarily an issue, but saying that I am black and so I bring a different perspective or anything like that, focusing on that kind of sell at the very beginning is the identity politics of it, then he should put focusing on crime up to the top, because that's how you might actually possibly win over like your Chicago's a little bit, and your urban areas such as that, because there are a lot of people. I mean, we noticed Darren Bailey in Illinois, when he ran for governor against J.B. Pritzker, ended up talking to a lot of blacks in Chicago about crime. That was what they were mainly focused on. And so if you want to lean into race, say, hey, I'm a black senator, Tim Scott, running for president on crime because I think that BLM and the defund the police movement is doing a disservice to our community. That's what he should do. That honestly, it should not be a sixth point. It should be number one right at the top. And then finally, he talks about being pro-life. That's probably a good one to put at the bottom because we've gotten Roe v. Wade overturned now, and conservatives are passing legislation across the board in many different states that is pro-life legislation. And Congress, I mean, just basically saying, hey, I'm not going to make abortion a fundamental right is all we really need from a Republican president at a minimum. There's a lot of other, in my opinion, bigger fish to fry. But everybody, that's pretty much the Tim Scott video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Do not forget to like and subscribe and share and check out some of these videos. There's going to be some popping up here soon. Check those out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been Speechless, Cut for Time.